4 years now, coming up on 4 years. I've been working primarily in pen and ink. So I use this brand called Unipin. They're just these little fine pointed pens, and they're black, obviously. They're not like these little pens you would use in a classroom or something. I spent a lot of money on them and I go through quite a lot. I mean, this is like this handful right here, I could go through in one evening pretty easily if I was working pretty diligently. It'd be no problem. Widths, I mean, like 01, I get a bunch of these, and then there's like 02, which is like a little bit thicker, and then it goes up to like 08, and 08 and 05 are kind of the numbers you would use to color something in, essentially, like a really dark area that doesn't require a lot of thought. It's just kind of mind-numbing. And then the more technical stuff you use, like the 01s and 02s. I distinctly remember the moment I kind of decided to make the switch. I had drawn this jellyfish with these like Prismacolor pens that I had found lying around. I was like so sick and tired of working with pencils. For whatever reason, I was burnt out on it, and I wanted to try something new, but I didn't know what. I didn't feel ready to go into paint. I still don't. I just figured I'd try and do this stippling thing, which is this sort of, everyone thinks my work is stippling. It's not. Stippling is where you take a pen and just like do dots, and that's how you get gradients with them. I kind of work in a circular motion. I call it scribbling. I find that by doing that, you can get a much more convincing gradient. And I think it's a lot quicker. It's not an I think, I know. It's a lot quicker. I did this stippled jellyfish drawing, and it was pretty small, but looking back, like at the time, it was a pretty big drawing. And a couple months later, I think it was a couple months later, I did my first piece. And I ordered this paper. It's called Arches. It's the only paper I use now, and it comes from France, and it's just this gorgeous paper. It's super thick. It's got this really neat texture to it, and I can't go back. I can't go back. It's museum grade, so it doesn't fade. It doesn't yellow. It's just really nice, and it makes me feel a lot more professional than I actually am. So the first drawing I did, and there's definitely a theme, especially with a lot of my early work, it's just a bunch of random stuff, a lot of random images, some of which I found on Google, and a lot of which that I would just go out and acquire, photograph myself, and then sketch it and draw it. I was just trying to teach myself a new medium. So this is what I consider to be the first pen and ink drawing, where I actually began to use that scribbling technique, and a lot of pieces are very difficult now, but I know how to work through them regardless of what sort of texture I'm working through. I can just piece it together in my head because I've done it before to some degree. I did this Crew Dragon drawing, and if you're familiar with Elon Musk, I just thought it was cool. It's a rocket. I also just want to note that when I made this, I couldn't believe how big it was, because when I was working with pencils, honestly, they probably take about the same amount of time, but I was the slowest worker. Another thing that I've become since I started doing this is I've become quite efficient. The drawings take forever, but I'm a lot quicker than I used to be. I thought this was like, there ain't no way I'm making anything bigger than this again. Then I moved on to my next piece. It was a little more technical, but once again, totally random. There's nothing really behind this. It's just this crab suit from Avatar. Avatar is my favorite movie, so I thought it was really cool to put this guy together. It took me a long time just working in the little details here on the claws. This one was also pretty random, but you know, if you look deeply into it, it's starting to become a little more thought-provoking. You probably don't remember this. This was like during COVID, when like this little monolith, it kept popping up in just random places and people were freaking out. There was like one in Utah, and then one ended up in like New York City, and people were like, where are these things coming from? So I'm like, I'm gonna draw one, and my plan was to take it out and just frame it, and I kind of cringe when I think about this. I thought it was like the coolest idea. I was going to frame it and hang it from a bridge in Pittsburgh and just like let whoever finds it take it. Nobody gives a shit. It's not that cool. I thought it would be the coolest idea to do a 3-part mini-series of just 3 things that are kind of related and just spend a couple weeks and put it together. And I've actually been doing that every single year since then. I think I just completed year 4 of it, which is kind of cool. I'm drawing a lot of things that I just find interesting, right? Because I'm just trying to build up my technical ability. Just started using pens, and I'm gonna draw things that are interesting, right? I don't give a shit about drawing your dog, I'm sorry. So there's this game called Call of Duty, more specifically Call of Duty Zombies, and I hold it near and dear to my heart. Means a lot to me. I have a lot of fond memories of this game. There's these weapons called wonder weapons. They're very iconic, and if you play video games, you've probably heard of them. So I drew 3 wonder weapons, and these are actually prints because I sold the originals. So I drew the ray gun, have the Wunderwaffe here. This one's really cool, and I actually had a second print of this that I gave to my neighbor over there who used to play Call of Duty Zombies with us all the time growing up. So I felt like he deserved it. And then, of course, you've got the thunder gun. My sister is going to get the ray gun, my brother's going to get the Wunderwaffe, and I'm going to take the thunder gun. Gonna get them framed eventually, but framing's expensive, so as you can probably tell, I've been holding off on that on a lot of things. What was so cool about this, though, was it was COVID, so things are just weird during COVID. And money's tight. I mean, no one's working. You're not bringing in money. I had no job. And I did this, and I posted them online like I do with all my stuff, just see what happens, you know? Throw some shit at the wall, eventually it sticks. And I got this message, and lo and behold, it was from this guy that I recognized. I'm not going to say his name. He's a head honcho writer for the Call of Duty Zombies franchise. And he reached out to me. He's like, those would look really good on our wall. How much? And I'm like, this much money. And we kind of negotiated a little bit, but I sold 3 drawings basically a couple months after I started. And it was like a considerable amount. And I haven't done anything like that since. I figured if I can do it once, surely I can do it twice and maybe make a career out of it. So, yeah, I hope it happens again soon. A couple months later, I had a heartbreaking loss in my life. It was one of the most devastating, tragic losses of my entire life. My Xbox controller passed away. I had so many fond memories of it, so I commemorated it with a drawing. Another dark time in my life, I was trying to join FaZe Clan, another gaming Call of Duty related thing. Once again, dark time in my life. Very cringy. I wish I never did it, but I drew this. It's like this little founder brick thing. They're really expensive. Of course, it has the FaZe logo in there. And I did get something out of it, though. I entered this into a art contest, and I won a hoodie from FaZe, which is one of my favorite hoodies, by the way. But it's since been lost. I have no idea where it is. But it was very warm, very well put together. FaZe, if you're seeing this, please send me another hoodie. And then after that, I felt like my technical ability was pretty good, and I was very confident in myself. So now I had this period where all I wanted to do was make stuff to hang around the house. And I, once again, never did because you have to get them framed, and framing's expensive. I'm from Pittsburgh, so sports are really popular around here. It's ingrained in our culture. So as a Steeler fan, I drew a terrible towel. That was actually quite fun to do. For some of these, I distinctly remember kind of what was happening in my life when I was making the pieces, and for some reason this one kind of stands out as a good memory. Also drew a Troy Polamalu jersey. He's my favorite NFL player of all time. I wanted this to get to him so bad, but he never saw it. So, you know, guess we'll hold on to it. That's fine with me. And so to quickly go through that little 3-part mini-series thing that I do on an annual basis, here was year 2. So I actually only have 2 of 3 because I gave one of them away to a good buddy of mine he's a really solid Rocket League player, and I just, whenever he comes over for like our New Year's parties every year, and we just game, and I just figured it was fitting for him to have one. I didn't plan on selling them anyway, so. The other 2 I have, these are just cars from, once again, Rocket League. I haven't played in a long time, so I think this one's called Merc. It's just this big hunk of a car. And then, of course, this other guy right here, I've got Breakout. I don't really remember. These were just like the three main cars in the game at the time. The other one was called Octane, in case you were curious. On year 3 of my annual series, I did this just last year. I did more Call of Duty Zombies related stuff. I try to make the series around a game that I've been playing a lot during that period. It's always about video games because the first like 200 videos, over half the videos on my channel are gaming related, I'd say. It's kind of like a nod to my past. You know, I still game, but that's not where my videos are at anymore. That's not where my primary focus is in life. This is the Ray Gun Mark II. You saw the first version of the ray gun earlier. This one's a little less iconic, but still iconic nonetheless. This one was very fun to do. Another weapon here, we've got the Sliquifier. I hated the map. This is only in one particular map in Black Ops 2. I hated the map, so didn't really use it much. I used it a little bit, but I used to watch a lot of gameplay, and I'm like, dude, this thing is sick. Let's do it. And then last but not least, I've got the Monkey Bomb here. So I get all of these images. I don't go online and get them. I go and get them in-game myself. So picture me, if you're familiar with the game at all, zombies swarming me, and I have like the gun, and I'm trying to like take photos. I don't know how else to explain it. I went into this game mode called Blackout to get a picture for this. Think of it like Fortnite, which is probably more well-known. And imagine there's like 100 people in the lobby, and I have to search the map to pick up one of these guys. Because you don't just like spawn in with it. And I ran to like the edge of the map with him and like threw him on the ground and had to keep like picking him up and throwing him on the ground to get the lighting right because the sun is coming down in game, right? And then I would take screenshots and transfer them to my phone and then sketch it out. It was hard. It was hard. Now it's year 4, and these are the 3 most recent drawings I've done. So we're getting out of order here, but I want to kind of do these smaller drawings first before we get into the big stuff. So the game that I've been vibing most with the past year or so is Starfield. And it's this Bethesda game. It's one of my favorite studios. They make like Skyrim, the Elder Scrolls. You've got the Elder Scrolls Online. You've got Fallout. You've got Starfield, obviously, and Doom. And I mean, they make a lot of cool stuff. And of course, Fallout just got a show. But anyway, I did these 3 plushy drawings. They're like these collectible things in game. They do nothing other than just you can use them to decorate your house and spaceship and whatnot. This was one of the hardest drawings I've ever done in my life. It's got like this super like, it's knitted. It's knitted, and I had to get that down on pen. Next up, we have my buddy Star Pal here. There's a common theme with literally everything that I make. I always think it's going to be easier than it actually is. I mean, when you look at this guy, it doesn't look like there's much going on, but this guy was a real struggle fest as well. Just about pretty much everything that I make. You just gotta be patient. And then, of course, you've got Galacticat. How cool is that? So once again, picture me picking up the plushie in-game and carrying him around the world, throwing him on the ground, manipulating his legs, and then making sure the sun and the lighting look good, and then taking a bunch of photos and picking my favorite. That's the process. This, for whatever reason, is one of my most favorite pieces, and I think when you look deeply at it, it kind of makes sense because I work at a running store, and I just like shoes. But this was done before I started working at Pro Bike and Run. I have these Nike Air Force Ones here that my sister got for going to nationals or something. They get like gifts at school for being on the team. This one was so difficult because I had to figure out how to draw a white object using black pens. Very, very subtle details that I had to incorporate in there, but to this day, it's still one of my favorite pieces I've done. So I made my first leap. I don't remember how long it was, but it wasn't long after I started. So this was like my first big piece. I mean, you can see, hold up. It's very big. It's very big, and although there's a lot of negative space up top, which the whole top half literally took me like an hour to do. This was scary for me, but it's what I needed to do to make the next jump because, I mean, the bigger things got, the more intimidating they got naturally. And this Polaroid camera was very near and dear to me. It was a camera that my grandfather had, and he gave it to me. And unfortunately now, it's been a little soured because there's been family issues and whatnot. I kind of hate this piece now. So whenever I stack up all of my drawings in the sunroom, this one normally sits at the bottom. I also hate the lettering. I think I butchered the letters. It was really difficult to get the letters right, and I think I did okay, but they could have been a lot better. The big drawings just kept on coming. Another Call of Duty Zombies related machine here, and this is kind of where wonder weapons are made. This is where you put your weapon in this pack-a-punch machine and they come out much more powerful. Once again, super iconic, and honestly, I was thinking about it the other day on the topic of framing. This is probably something that I want to get framed for the lounge, which Easter egg, foreshadowing. Stick around for upcoming videos to know what I mean. I just realized my fly's been down this entire time. Holy crap, that is embarrassing. This is one of those pieces that I'm probably going to explore again in the future because there are other versions of this machine in newer games. And I just, sometimes art, it's not about whether or not something's gonna sell. This will never sell, but to me, I just love making art for the sake of making it. Sometimes there doesn't have to be a rhyme or reason for doing it. It's just you enjoy the process of making something with your hands and seeing a vision come to life, no matter how thought-provoking or simple it may be. It doesn't fucking matter. This was a flag that I got solely for the purpose of photographing it myself. I made it a point. This was one of the first pieces that I'm like, all right, no more Google search. I've always understood that's an amateur way to do it, but if you're practicing, it's different. But now I was like, let's buy a flag, photograph it, and then put it on paper. It's as simple as that. So Joe Rogan is, any dude in his 20s, we're all the same. We do our ice baths. We love our David Goggins. We love fitness. We love Joe Rogan, right? No, seriously, I consume so many podcasts, so much music, so much whatever when I make these pieces. They take a very long time. I probably went through 20 of his episodes while making this piece, and it's not even that big. Back then, I thought this was massive. That's kind of the theme of all the stuff I make. But this really didn't take me that long. It was really difficult, though, because as you can see, the darker a piece is, the longer it takes, because you're building layers upon layers. You put down a light base layer first, and then you just keep building on top of it to get the refined value that you need. And naturally, the lighter values, they don't take nearly as long. So this ate up a lot of pens. This is a horse saddle, in case you guys couldn't tell. And this one's kind of stupid. This one came shortly after I made my first sale. Remember those 3 weapons? At this point, I was like, I just had money coursing through my veins. Not really, but I'm just like, holy shit, it's happening. I really thought it was happening. Oh my gosh, I can do this. In my mind, I just thought everything I made was going to sell at this point. So I'm like, all right. I make lots of money. Let's draw something that rich people like. And I came up with a horse saddle. That's really all it is. This one, when you attach the story to it, it's kind of hollow. But I thought it came out pretty well. It wasn't a very difficult piece, but I cranked it out in about 2 or 3 days of work. So I saved these pieces for last for one specific reason. This was when I made the next jump. This is when I decided, okay, enough of all this random shit. It's cute, it's fun. Obviously, I still do it from time to time, but it's not my focus anymore. I'm really happy where I'm at with this sort of style. I still have a lot to learn from it. This is when I started looking at galleries, and I'm like, all right, it's not sustainable enough to keep doing things the way I'm doing them now. I need professional help. I need to do this professionally. I need to join galleries. I need to create a set of work that's all connected. And I found myself super fascinated. I've been so fascinated with the ancient world, whether it be millions of years ago, 1,000 years ago, a couple decades ago. I mean, fuck, I mean, a couple decades ago feels ancient at this point. I remember specifically I was over my friend's house one day and his dad was showing us this cow skull he got when he traveled to Colorado to go hunting. And I just kind of knew immediately. I'm like, I want to draw skulls. I want to draw fossils. And I found myself so fascinated by bones, old bones, I called them. And for the last few years, I kind of delved into that and really just started putting out the best work I could make. And it took a lot of effort because drawing bones is really difficult. There's a lot of intricacies in them, but it's really my proudest work. I think it really defines me as a person. I know I post a lot of rendering content here, but this is like really me. The whole art thing, it's always been me. So I've got a few smaller drawings to point out here first. So obviously, here's that cow skull I was talking about. This was, looking back, not a very difficult piece, but I spent a lot of time on it, just making sure I was getting it right, because I wanted to submit to galleries and, you know, just make sure I was putting out the best work I could. I took it very serious, every piece I did. I'm like, all right, I need more reference photos. So what better place to go to than museums? And Pittsburgh has a lot of them. So I go to the Carnegie Museum of Natural History at least once a year to look at their collection. And I probably annoyed the curators quite a lot because I emailed them all the time. I'm like, hey, can you help me get this? Can you help me get that? And sometimes it works. But I've got this T-Rex skull that I drew, or fossil. This at the time was, I was so proud of this. I just couldn't believe I pulled it off. I didn't think I'd be able to do it with pens, but that's really where things started to change for me. And then from here on out, I basically just scaled up and just kept pushing the limit. I don't really rank my drawings, but this one has to be in my top 3. I have this Triceratops fossil here. This was one where I kind of leveled up a little bit, where I was so patient and so intense about how I was doing it and so detail oriented. Like I worked so hard, like I was getting headaches all the time, like I was losing sleep over it. That's how you know it's getting serious. It really is just like patience for the most part, and investing a lot of money because once again, all the materials are really expensive. And I wanted them to be big. I wanted people to actually see them, because when I see a drawing that's small, I'm kind of like, meh. I wanted people to look at it and see kind of the creature that was behind it. This massive, massive beast, you know? Like a Triceratops. That thing is so big, it's so cool. Like, I feel like it's not doing it justice unless it's pretty much life size. I don't know if this one is life size. I don't know exactly how big a Triceratops is, but yeah, you get my idea. So we talk about the Triceratops. I have no idea if it's life size. I know this one is. So right here, we've got a life-sized Tyrannosaurus Rex fossil, and I couldn't be happier about it. This is either my most favorite drawing I've ever done or my second favorite, which we're going to get to in a minute here. This is the biggest drawing I've ever done, yeah. Unless I'm missing something. I don't think I am. I just remember the struggle of putting this together. It was many sleepless nights, many like wondering, am I gonna pull this off? Many just like wanting to pull my hair out. Every inch has detail. When you're doing these, you notice there is literally detail everywhere. Nothing is flat, nothing. And I tried to really put that on show here. I really wanted to show the age of these fossils and really, once again, appreciate what they are and what they were. Because in today's day and age, like we're so engulfed in our phones and technology, we really just overlook everything. Everything just sort of blurs together. This, my friends, is a Redondosaurus. If the last one is not my favorite, then this one certainly is. I don't know what it is about it. It's just, I like it. I love the composition. It's just very long, very crocodile-ish. And the detail on it is one of my favorites. I mean, it was like one of those really scaly looking creatures. And I had a lot of fun with it, a lot of stress, but it was definitely worth it in the end. If I could get one drawing framed and hung up in my room forever, I think it would be this one. This, my friends, is our friend, the Pachycephalosaurus. I think that's how you pronounce it. I just remember watching the Land Before Time, and I just always loved how it looks like it's like bald. They've got this big ass forehead. They're good for like ramming into things. This one was very difficult, not just because of the detail, but also because if you look at it, especially on the left side, I love the composition of this. It's got this very dark, contrasting value, and then as you work your way up towards the top of the skull here, it gets lighter. And I just thought that transition looked really cool. This is my final fossil drawing here. It's a Stegosaurus, another goat. I think this was the last one I did. I actually haven't made one in quite some time, and if I'm being honest with you, I haven't really had much time to make drawings recently. I love this one, although the paper is still driving me crazy for whatever reason. All right, so the paper I get, it's Arches. It comes in a big fat roll, and if it sits too long, it's going to start to curl up a bit. So I pile a bunch of stuff on top of it, and it kind of flattens out over time. Even Pachycephalosaurus, he's flat now. He was really like curly for a while. This guy, he's giving me a hard time. I chose the reference for this one in particular because his mouth is open and it kind of looked like he was trying to say something like, "What's eating you, buddy? What's going on? Tell me about it." Or it looks like he's cackling, or like he let out a giggle. Maybe he farted or something, I don't know. Just now realizing how much their skull kind of resembles a duck. Birds are descended from dinosaurs. No fucking way. That just blew my mind. This is our second to last drawing here. Don't worry, we're almost done. Thank you so much for tuning in up until this point. It's been a while. This is back to kind of things we can relate to. This is another deer skull, and funny story, I remember I was at my buddy's house. I saw this laying in the yard, and I was like hungover. We had been somewhere the night before, and I'm like, let's take a picture. So I take the skull and I put it out on the driveway, and the sun was actually at this perfect point. It was directly above us, and I saw the shadow right here, and I loved the contrast. I loved the composition, and I snapped that photo and just worked from it. I also really liked it. There's a lot of negative space in here. One, that's another reason, but also just the way the antlers are and the shadows, it made me think of a Wendigo, and I'm really into folklore. It really just feels like he's reaching out to grab you, like. And finally, last but certainly not least, we have ourselves another deer skull. And this one, it's kind of nostalgic for me because this is actually a deer skull we've had lying around in our house for years. And when you're short on material and reference photos, I just picked it up one day and I said, this is going to be added to the series. It fits. I like this a lot because I don't always incorporate the actual shadow of the figure, only what's within it. I thought this added a really interesting component to it, made it a little more unique than most of the other works. A lot of the works can't really feature this because they're displayed at museums and they don't really have this sharp outline here. Because I can take this one, I took it out onto my driveway, just like I did on the last one, the Wendigo one, and with the sun beaming down on you, you can get some interesting compositions. This one had its set of difficulties as well. There were a lot of cracks in here that really required really tiny, tedious details, and the teeth were surprisingly difficult as well, but I really like how they came out. You have to kind of find the flow of the bone, or whatever object it is you're making, and kind of follow that flow with your pen. So, I mean, it kind of flows up this way towards the nose here, and I kind of just have to just take it and just, you see that sort of C motion, how I'm going up, and if I need to get one that goes here along the line of the teeth here, the curve of the teeth, I kind of have to position my arm like this, and now I make a C that direction.